Hi everybody, it's Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and today I just wanted to do a little video on what I did in my day today. This is Saturday, and my plans on Saturday are usually just cleaning my house, doing laundry, that kind of thing. And then if I've got time, I quilt or I paint, do work on one of my hobbies. Today I decided I needed to do some shopping, and my husband and my daughter went along with me. And what I was looking for was a table to put a fish tank on. And so we decided to go to an antique mall, and I did not have my video camera with me, so I didn't videotape anything there, but I did take some photographs, so I'm going to show you what I found there. Now my goal was to find a sturdy, cheap table to use for a stand for a fish tank, and I have two fish tanks that are in operation right now. I have a 10-gallon and a 5-gallon, and I've had the 10-gallon going for, I don't know, 10 years now. The smaller one has probably been about 5, and the fish in there, I used to have 3 tanks. One was actually my daughter's, and then she kind of got tired of it, so I was taking care of 3 tanks, and it was in her bedroom, and it was kind of hard for me to remember to get into her room and take care of it. So I decided to clean out the tank and combine those fish with the fish in my other tanks. And so I did that, and now the fish are bigger, and the tanks are just too crowded, so I needed to set that tank up again. So I decided to go ahead and put it in my office because I'm in here quite a bit, so it's not like I'm going to forget to feed these fish, and I have access to it whenever I want to. So I did find a TV stand that I thought might work, but it was on a swivel. The top swiveled, and I was a little bit leery about it being able to handle a 10-gallon tank full of water, because that's going to be pretty heavy. And so we passed that by, and then we went ahead and did our grocery shopping. And while I was picking up some other items, I decided that I just used what I had at home, and I have a sewing machine cabinet that I really can't use because it doesn't fit any of my machines. And a lot of sewing machine cabinets, the older ones, which this is, are made for a specific brand and type of machine, and I don't know what kind of machine this was made for. This was something that was given to me. Somebody thought I could use it, and I can't because it doesn't fit any of my machines. So it's just been sitting in my basement taking up space, and the space I want to put the tank is fairly narrow. It had to be less than 36 inches wide to fit in there. So actually this table is 32 inches, so it fits. So when we got home, I measured it, and we brought it upstairs, and in the process of moving it, the top broke. So it's one of these tops that you put your finger in this little hole and you pull the top out, and it's connected to the part that lifts up with dowels, and those dowels broke. So my husband fixed those for me. And then we had put in new kitchen counters and a new sink 2 years ago, and so the piece of countertop that they cut out for the sink, we still had it, was sitting in the garage. So we brought that in, and it fits the top. It's probably an inch shorter than the top, which is perfect because the top has a routed edge, so it fits perfectly on there. And so I'm going to be able to get my tank set up. So anyway, while we were at the antique mall looking for a table, of course I had to look for quilt tops too, and I really did not find much at this mall. This is a mall that I've been to quite a few times, but it's been 2 years since I've been there, and they're in the process of remodeling, so there wasn't as much merchandise to look through. And the quilts that they had, most of them were already finished, and that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for unfinished tops. So I'll show you some photographs of what I found, and kind of give you a description of what they are and what I feel they were worth, as far as not so much, well, monetarily, but why I would either choose to buy one of those or pass them up. Now, I passed them all up because I just really wasn't in the mood to look at the quilts. They were all pretty and I looked at them all, but nothing really grabbed my heart. Nothing said, I've got to have this one, so I just left them. And that's kind of what I do when I look for vintage tops. It's got to be something that just really grabs me before I will consider buying it. And then I have to look at the condition, and then I have to look at the price, and decide if it's worth what they're asking for, and if I am willing to pay what they're asking for, which is the big part. So I usually, when I am shopping for vintage tops, I usually go in with a preset budget. How much am I going to spend? And today I just really wasn't thinking of buying a quilt or a quilt top, so I just really didn't want to buy anything today. So I thought, well, it'd be something that I could come back and look at later if I decide I wanted it, but there was nothing there that I was really interested in. So I'm going to show you the photographs, and we'll do a little discussion on these tops and what I thought about them. This was an applique quilt. It was hand appliqued and hand quilted, and it was made with some really thick batting, and it was a fairly decent sized quilt. It was about the size for a twin bed. The green fabrics were a bit faded, but they were still in good shape, and it's hard to judge the age of this top since everything was a solid fabric. But I have no idea how old it was, and it was priced at $125, which I thought wasn't bad for a quilt that was handmade. Now, this was a display of 3 different quilts. The one on the top was a star quilt, and that one wasn't in the best of shape. The fabrics were extremely faded, and the fabrics there that looked brown, those were starting to deteriorate. Now, the star quilt below that was made with newer fabrics, and it was hand quilted, and it was in fairly good shape. And then the one that I liked the best was the one at the bottom. That was the yellow applique sampler, and those fabrics were in fairly good shape too. And each one of those quilts was priced again at about $125, which for handwork I didn't think was bad at all. This Sunbonnet Sue quilt was tied. It wasn't quilted, it was tied, but all the embroidery was hand done, and I thought that one was really cute. This one, they were asking $40 for it. It was new, and it stated that it was new. It said new baby quilt, and it was listed at $40. So actually that wasn't a bad price, and this is one that if I had bought this, I would take the ties out and take the quilt apart, and then I would quilt it on the machine. I just redo it. And this was one that is what I would consider, but it's a smaller quilt, and it just did not grab me today. Now, this was a hand crocheted bed covering. I didn't open this all the way because the lady who owned the booth was there, and she was really pushing me to buy something, so I didn't want to look too interested in it and have to deal with all the pressure she was putting on me. But this one I was interested in because of the work in it. I know how much work it goes to make one of these because I have tried, and my mother has made one, and I know how long it took her to make one. So I was impressed with the quality of it and the size of it. It was a fairly good size cover, but once again, it's not a quilt, it's a crocheted cover, so it really isn't something that I was really wanting to spend money on today. So I really did like this, but it's just not what I was looking for. Now this is the top that I seriously considered going ahead and picking up. This one was being sold for $55, and it's not a complicated top at all, as you can see. It's just, you know, the squares and the rectangles or the triangles, but I like the fabrics in it, especially the boat fabric there and the one with the yellow and red flowers. I was really drawn to those, and I did consider that one, but once again, it's just I wasn't there to buy quilt tops today, and I was not in the mood to buy anything quilt wise today, so I left that there. And that is one that I may consider going back, but it's a very simple top, and I usually go for something that's a little more elaborate, has a little more detail in it. Now this is a 9-patch that is set with alternate blocks, and this top, well, it's a quilt, was machine quilted, and it was made with a really thick batting, and they were asking $125 for this top too. That seemed to be the price of the day. Most everything was at $125 for the completed quilts. This may have been made with some older fabrics. For me, it was a little hard to tell, but I did like the teal colored blue in there, and but once again, it is already a completed top. It wasn't one that needed to be quilted. This was another machine quilted top, and I like the pattern in there. I don't know the name of it. I'll have to look this up, but I did like the hexagon shapes in there that the pattern made. It made a hexagon shape and the diamonds. This one I think was going for $150, and it was made with a really thick batting too, and the binding on it was a little bit frayed and probably would have needed to be rebound. Once again, this was a completed quilt, and it wasn't a quilt top, so I wasn't interested in this one either. Now this one is a hand appliqued and hand embroidered and hand quilted quilt. Now this one, I liked the contrast of the green and the purple, and I like the designs they had quilted in it. It's a little bit different. I do believe this is a modern quilt, or more modern. It's not a vintage top, and you know, it was interesting, and if I was looking for something like this, this is one that I would have purchased, but I don't usually go for the completed quilts. I like to buy the unfinished tops and then complete them myself. Now this is a hexie quilt, and this one was done kind of in a rectangle. You start in the center and then they work their way around, and it had some older fabrics in it. On this side, the yellow looks like a 30s conversation print, and then there was some teal and pink and blue fabrics in there that were older. Now the blue with the daisies, I believe, is a newer fabric. And then I've got another view of this from the other side, and I'll show you that. So here's the other side of that quilt, and you can see a variety of different fabrics in there. And once again, I think there's a combination of some vintage fabrics and some newer fabrics. And this one was machine quilted with an overall design, and I think it was interesting with all the different fabrics, and I do like those types of quilts that have a lot of different fabrics in them. But once again, it was a completed quilt. And this is another 9-patch with alternate blocks, and it is machine quilted. And this one, I don't think the fabrics are that old in it. I'm thinking maybe the 80s and 90s, though that block with the green in it, that may be some older fabrics. I'm not quite sure on that, but I'm not sure what range that would be. I don't think it's a 30s, but it could be an older fabric in there. And I do like that blue as the alternate blocks. I think that's brightens it up, makes it a little more cheerful. This was a display with a trunk, and they were just draped over that trunk. Now the one with the hearts on it is machine quilted with an overall design of pantograph, and it's a small baby quilt size. And the one that's underneath it, the one with the coins, the coin pattern, that is also machine quilted, and it's also some newer fabrics. That's not a vintage quilt either, but I thought it was interesting with the dark background, how it made all the colors in it pop. And I think they were asking $50 for each one of those quilts. Now these are all newer quilts, and they were all machine quilted with a pantograph, and they had some really heavy batting in them. And I didn't even look at the prices of these because, you know, they're new and they were already quilted, and I wasn't interested in buying them. But I did pull out the one on the lower, well, I guess it's the middle rack there, the yellow one, and I'll show you another picture of that one. And the reason I pulled this out is I was wanting to see what that design was, and it looks like it's a floral type design of some kind, and I thought that was kind of an interesting way to do that. But once again, that is a newer quilt too. Now this was a quilt that was hand quilted, and then they cut it up and made it into the upholstery fabric for this chair. This is a rocking chair, and then they made a pillow and a little like table topper with the remaining parts of it. Now this wasn't an old quilt. This was a newer quilt, and I like the color combination, and I like the effect. And I'm really glad this wasn't a vintage quilt that they did this to. But I think that is a neat idea to do that if you have a newer quilt and you want to cover a chair with it. I think that's a neat idea for that, as long as your quilt's new. But that's about all that I found in this shop, which is a little bit unusual because the shop usually has quite a few vintage tops that need to be quilted. So that is all the quilts that we saw at the antique mall, and most of them were more modern quilts. There weren't any unfinished tops other than the one, and it's one that it just didn't draw my attention enough for me to want to buy it. Now that may change. I could always go back to the store and pick it up at some point. But I think the point is that most of the quilts that were there, they weren't overpriced, which is good because, you know, they just won't be sold if they are overpriced. And I have seen antique malls that they are, you know, they would be asking $125 for a top that's not finished, and these were the ones. The most expensive one was $125, and it was a finished top. So I think that's good. Now I think next weekend, if we've got the time, that we will go to a different town and go to another antique mall that it's much bigger. This mall we went to today is fairly small. It's more of a, or it used to be more of a flea market type place, and but it was starting to lean more towards antiques, true antiques, not just flea market type items that you see a lot of times. And I think that's what they're doing right now. They've got probably about a third of their shop now that is under construction, and what they had open was more of the antique type things. So I think they're trying to get in better stuff. But the mall that I want to go to, it's huge, and usually their things are pretty decently priced. Now there's a couple other antique malls near that one that are smaller, and their antiques tend to be through the roof as far as prices go. And I can find quilt tops there, but spending $125 to $150 for a top is not something I'm going to do. Most of the time I just go there to look, but I don't buy anything. So the mall that we're going to go to next weekend, hopefully I will find something there. I usually do, but we'll see. And things, shopping for vintage tops kind of go that way for me. I will find, there'll be seasons where I find a ton of stuff, and then there's other seasons where I just don't find anything. And there's really no rhyme or reason, because it's not seasons like the time of year. It's just kind of, there's just phases. There'll be a year where anytime I go to an antique mall or a flea market, I find something, I can pick it up. And then there'll be another, after that, another 6 months, and I'll go to all these shops, and then I don't find anything at all. And I think that may be kind of the phase we're in right now. And part of it may be because at the Quilt Guild, I bring all these tops and I complete them and I show them to people, and I've noticed that more people are going out and they're buying them and they're completing them themselves. So I kind of started a trend, and I kind of, the inventory is starting to be sold, which is good, because that's, what I'm doing is buying these tops and completing them so that they can be used. And I can't take care of them all, so we do need other quilters who will buy these tops and finish them and use them. So that's a good thing. So I will try and see if I can videotape in this mall that we're going to, that I hope we're going to go to next weekend. I have a long weekend with a 4th of July holiday, so hopefully we will get up there. That town is about 35 minutes away from us, so we'll see. And some stores won't let you videotape. Now this place didn't seem to have a problem with it. At least they didn't have a problem with me taking photographs of all these quilts, so I doubt that they would care if I videotaped. But I will see about this other place. Some stores have the signs right up front, no videotaping and no photographs, that kind of thing, and others just don't care. So we'll see, and hopefully I'll find something to bring home. And if I don't, I still have other projects that I need to finish, so it's not an issue. It's fun to do, and I kind of need to get out and do something different with my days off other than just clean my house. So it's good to get out and do things, and now that I'm starting to feel better, I've got more energy to do that. Though this trip to the mall and then to Walmart is where we went the next step. That did wear me out, and I went home and I crashed for about an hour. But so I do get fatigued yet still, and that may be the way things are going to be for ever, but it may improve. But I'm going to see how much I can handle, and not let the fatigue get me down any more than it has to. So okay, I hope you enjoyed this video, a little look into what I did on my day off, and I will see you in the next video.
Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links. And to keep up with my newest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.